Women First.
I'm Tonia Madenford. I'm a film producer and a director, and have teamed up with Frank Jacob on several productions, some of which we have here, called Solar Revolution, Packing for Mars, and Klaus Chronicles.
And I'm Frank Jacob. I'm also a director and a producer, and I've teamed up with Tonia Madenford. This company's called Screen Addiction for the last 10 plus years, and we've pushed, and developed consciousness-raising films, television shows, and research that takes us in front of people doing live presentations.
Okay, so do you want to just briefly describe the movies?
Okay, I guess I'll jump in there. We're known for 3 documentaries as well as other projects, but the 3 main ones that people know us about for the most part are Klaus Chronicles, which is a film or a documentary, which is in a way our least cinematic film production, because it's just centering around the research that was done by an Austrian out-of-place artifacts UParts researcher called Klaus Dohna. And Klaus had accumulated a series of different videotapes and photographs and exhibitions he'd done, and we decided to compile that for him nicely and put it together, because still, even if it isn't as cinematic as the other films we've done, it really gives you an incredible overview of archaeological finds that Klaus had accumulated and collected and published over the years, that if they were accepted by the mainstream would mean that history and archaeology and cultural knowledge of Earth would have to be redefined and rewritten. The other film that came right after that was Solar Revolution. That one is a film about consciousness related to the cosmos, and the film is based on the best-selling work of a German biophysicist by the name of Dieter Boers, who worked together with us on that project, where we explored the idea of, if this is true about the Mayas talking about the Hunabku and some kind of involuntary evolutionary process which is standing before mankind, what would that look like? Is there science to support it? And what role does the sun play in that? And so we explore all those topics and really get into some very interesting areas, especially with respect to human biology and human frequencies and things that affect our consciousness that are known in science, in inner science circles, specifically mind control. And in a positive sense, we have frequencies which affect our pineal gland, which could put us into altered states of consciousness, into higher levels of consciousness, to peer into other dimensions, which might give us clues as to a fuller or broader existence of life, versus even the idea that there are levels of science that use these same kinds of technologies to also I guess affect us in a limiting fashion. But we don't really explore that much in the film. We really deal more with the positive aspect of it, and the idea that love and connectivity and our knowledge and connection to the cosmos is something which is our destiny in a way. And so that's what that film talks about. And while we were making that film, actually we were started another film called Packing for Mars, which is the one in the middle, which is more of a crazy punk brother, young brother, or sister film of Solar Revolution, that we took a similar, very cinematic approach to filming a crazy subject. But we also delve into scientific elements that are on the fringe, but we explore a thesis which was developed based on a series, our television show, which came out in 1977 called Alternative 3, which was followed up by a novel with the same name written by a British Fleet Street author by the name of Leslie Watkins, who released it in 1978, which many people, even though it was a novel, believed it was a truthful account of something that was going on, and that was the secret colonization of Mars. And I was looking for a topic to do a documentary on, and I overheard an interview with Laura Eisenhower and Andrew Bishago And that decided, for me, that was okay. I'd been given this novel by a person many years ago, and here they were talking about that very subject. And I thought, okay, is this really true or is it really fiction? I want to know this. So I grabbed a backpack, threw my camera, a studio in a suitcase, and went on the road. And shortly after, I connected with Tonia Madenford, and the two of us then went on to produce all three of those films.
And it was a wild ride down the rabbit hole. I mean, we went to all the teleportation and time travel locations from Project Pegasus and had phenomenal people come to the table to talk in this project with us. One of the people we showcased was Jose Escamilla, was also a huge pioneer in the field of UFOs and disclosure and the Clementine mission. And secret space programs.
We have the father of exopolitics, Alfred Lambermont Weber, in it. We have an extraterrestrial in it called Jerry Wills. And who else do we have in it? Just, Richard Dolan.
We talk about jump rooms. We really went to these locations and filmed and even knocked on doors and talked to locals to really try to get to the bottom of what was going on. Bill Ryan from Project Camelot gave us a really great interview where we went into the subjects of deep underground bases and what the military is doing.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even know about Project Camelot or Project Pegasus.
No, they had their time, and they broke apart. Right around the time that I connected with them, I didn't even know this, but then by chance, when I arrived in Los Angeles, it was right after we met. Then I left because I had my trip planned before we met, and I ended up in Los Angeles, and I set an appointment with Carrie Cassidy, and she said, "Oh, would you like to?" She said, "Oh, Bill Ryan just happens to be here right now. Would you like to interview him as well?" And I'm like, "No." So we went, and it was then that I realized, wait a minute, it's here. Like they're finally Then I realized, they're not really together anymore on Project Camelot. They've gone their separate ways, but they're still friends. And here they were on that one day that I happened to be in Los Angeles. And so we got stunning interview material with both of them.
One thing that really fascinated me, a subject that really fascinated me when we were filming Solar Revolution, I'm really into the whole supernatural, metaphysical component. And there was technology called the Chronovisor. And I thought we really should go down that road to find out what is the Chronovisor. Can we really peer into timelines? And once we started really doing the research, we found that not only did this technology exist, apparently they could peer into the timeline, into the past, and record it. And there was apparently even micro footage that had been filmed, and kind of unique that when they would go into the timeline of our past and they would film it, it would all be in black and white. And then they would take this footage, this microfilm, and they would compare it with maybe our history books to find out maybe like the Mussolini speech, for instance. They would look at the footage and then compare it to what was in our actual history books. And they could see line by line, okay, this matches, so there must be some authenticity into the Chronovisor. And we featured Ernst Sinkowski in Solar Revolution, who was doing all this ITK and, working with this equipment to speak to the other side, go beyond the veil. And the Chronovisor sort of combined this research actually involving timelines to go back in time. And then we got into the whole Pellegrino and the Vatican and what happened and how this whole research had been dismantled and this technology had been dismantled, which is what led us to Project Pegasus and Andrew Basiago. But to take it a step further, Project Looking Glass was another project that sort of fell into this whole timeline, teleportation, all this. You hear about Montauk and Project Pegasus and the Philadelphia experiment, but with the Chronovisor, this is specific to timelines. And Project Looking Glass, we all know the movie Contact with Jodie Foster is fantastic, but this is it. And you've got CERN, and then you find out that CERN is not the only Hadron Collider. Nexus, Duncan Rhodes in Australia, we featured actually a couple of these films at his conference. He's awesome. They did a whole article on a project called Chani. That's a whole nother thing, but it's like an underground hadron collider that was in Africa, and it was a computer generated basically portal interface where scientists were actually beginning to dialogue with another intelligence, other dimensional beings. And so when you look at Project Looking Glass, is why Frank is here and speaking on Project Looking Glass, we're not only dealing with the past, we're dealing with the future. And then we're finding out that, in fact, there are future humans traveling back. So when we talk about extraterrestrials, it may be that not all extraterrestrials are actually from other planetary systems. They actually could be humans traveling backwards in time. And if we know and look into the Chani project, time actually isn't even linear, it's spherical, and time bends, it's like elastic. So everything's happening simultaneously. So the timelines, if you think of it from that perspective, we're changing time at every given moment, and the only time that really exists is now. So that means right now we can change the outcome of everything. And this is great. That means that our consciousness is changing reality at every moment. And that means there could be anchor points, and there could be things that we're going back and looking at, but we're just looking at basically the Acacia memory. And we're creating this memory because we're these amazing creative beings. So we're creating and co-creating, and I love Conscious Life Expos, bringing together all these amazing creators and empaths and powerful, energetic beings that are collectively coming together and creating this new paradigm. I mean, this is where we're at. And the Project Looking Glass, I think, is just letting us look at how things could be or might be if we don't really pull together as a unity and change things. And we also have to look collectively at our star brothers and sisters. We're all in this together. What happens here happens there. We're all connected. And it's interesting when you get into the P45s, the P52s. I'm not going to get into the whole thing with Project Looking Glass because that's his deal. But, like Bashar talks about the Essassani and the Sassani. This is all connected. It's all connected about the future humans.
Well, it's nice in a case like Bashar, where, we interviewed him for a film project we're working on. And, I was unaware of the Sassani, and when he starts talking about his particular version of hybridization, that had to do with this race of humans that were from another time, another timeline. So that was like a sync point. And it's always nice that when you're working on, or when you're doing films, or you're delving into these fringe topics, when there's some cohesion. So that not everybody's like, just one alien species and they're not connected at all to anything else. So you have no way to verify it. It's just, you took someone's word for it.
Yeah.
And there's no evidence, there's nothing, there's just them telling about it. It could be astral, which is why I do believe there's a difference between what we're trying to do with, at least what I was doing with respect to the Tales of Two Timelines, is the idea of tangible material to work with, as opposed to what I now call like fifth dimensional timeline stuff. Because a lot of people are having experiences that are seemingly valid. They're having interaction, they're having contact, but there's nothing to back it up. But they're so convinced of it that there must be something to it. So this is the way I look at a fifth dimensional timeline. And maybe a fifth dimensional timeline will precede our timeline, but to some degree. But, the amount of bleed over.
And then technologies like the D-Wave, and you've got CERN and these Hadron Colliders and the warbling, and you hear about things like the Mandela effect. There's a lot going on right now. But I think it's so key that we need to stay in the heart, and we need to really connect the heart and the mind and the spirit. When we were doing Solar Revolution, we filmed and we interviewed Michael Persinger, and I just had aha moment after aha moment with this interview, because he talks about how we really are light beings from a cellular level. And he actually described and quantified from a scientific standpoint even the Akashic record. And when Dieter talks as well, you realize that entire civilizations on Earth have risen and fallen, directly correlating with solar activity. That means we're directly connected with the multiverse. We are the multiverse. All the planetary systems and everything, we're all connected. That solar activity changes, and it changes us. We're walking, talking, breathing antennas. And that being said, right now in Sagittarius A, there's all these particles coming at the Earth right now. And one thing we all have in common, no matter what religion, what race, what location we all live in, what modalities we practice, we are all living in one big soup. And that's the electromagnetic field. And that electromagnetic field changes even a little bit. And our whole perception changes. Our whole DNA changes. If one little Persinger talks about how if one little base pay changes, our whole ability for language changes. It really doesn't take actually that much for us to shift, even in an electromagnetic way. So if you have a cosmic event, which we all know is happening and will happen and will continue to happen, then our whole reality at any given moment could be completely different. And I think we're also the co-creators of that.
That's what they say in the blink of an eye.
Blink of an eye, a twinkling of an eye. I actually have a twinkle plan. I actually mapped out a twinkle plan, but the Bible took study.
You know, we have a section in Solar Revolution where we went and talked with Rick Strassman, who was the only doctor or scientist who did a legitimate or authorized study with dimethyltryptamine with volunteers and documented it, because we felt it was, some people felt, well, you're promoting, DMT use or something like that, drug use, right? No,
we have natural DMT.
For us, it was about, well, yeah, there's that, but the thing is, the question will arise for someone that's watching the film going, well, what's it going to look like? What's it going to be like? You can't just always talk about this stuff and then not show something. So that study was amazing, and it was incredible to listen to the testimony of those people who had those experiences.
Were they all like geometric?
Yes, yeah. And we take people on a little ride. We actually give them a glimpse of what that could look like. And in all of these experiences, most of them, they go to a place, they actually end up dialoguing with the creator or with what we would think is God, and they recognize and have exchanges with beings. And many of them will have an experience, they did actually clinical experiments, but the experiment might last 3 minutes or 10 minutes, and it's like they've been gone thousands of years and have downloads of thousands of years. The time is completely...
That's not quantifiable.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at all this research and everything that's coming out, I think we can't really perceive the Earth like what we think it is, and space isn't what we think it is, and the planets aren't what we think it is, extraterrestrials aren't what we think it is, and we aren't what we think we are. I think we're all waking up to what it really is, and it's a grand thing. We're a grand thing. Yeah, everything's within.
So do you think that maybe we don't have to worry about end of the world and computers and the bad guys winning and taking over? Can we just shift our consciousness?
I think we need to actively do it.
Yeah.
I think we can't just sit back and let the plan unfold, as some people call it. I believe that's a mistake. We have to nurture these higher thoughts. We have to work on ourselves. We can't just expect that you go from absolute, NFL football, beer drinking, potbelly person to an enlightened master in one step because something happens in the cosmos. I don't believe that it's going to happen. I think we need to work on ourselves. We need to refine ourselves so that when these things happen, we're prepared to maximize the potential that we have from them.
Because everything's
we align from it, we're prepared for it, and we use it to catapult ourselves, and we're not shocked by it. There's going to be many people that are probably going to be experiencing, not everybody may make this leap. There's people that are very, very unconscious around us still now, even family members, and they may not make that leap. Whatever form that leap takes, but we know for a very fact that we are in for some kind of a cosmic event. There's cycles that happen in 10 to 12,000 years, patterns, and this is proven. These things, again, we're overdue for something to happen on that level, and it'll always catch people off guard. And so the best thing we can do is we can begin to prepare ourselves, just like you would for, they say, to stock up on extra food in case water or food supplies were suddenly to stop. Well, there's the mental or spiritual equivalent of that as well. We can begin to prepare ourselves mentally for when and if there's an eventuality where something unusual happens, that we're not shocked, and then we can ride it out.
And the key too is resonance, because we're going to attract what we are, and so that's a key point too.
So one of the requirements would be switching over to love, getting in that light.
That's right.
Forgiving others, and
Absolutely, like Solar Revolution, we end with that. I mean, as cliche as it is, love is the. I mean, love is the key. It's the resonance. It's the frequency. It's the energy. It's the surrender. It's the acceptance.
Forgiving people is a way to lessen the baggage. If you can really forgive somebody, you can't expect that your forgiving them will change them, but you can only change the way you respond to something in the world and how you react to it. So you can use these higher energies and higher frequencies to reach a better, clearer understanding of how everything actually comes back to you and how you respond to it, and how much fear is in you still, and how much you're prepared to surrender, and how much you're prepared to trust the universe, and how much you're prepared to understand that you and the universe are actually an extension of each other, and that you're in this dance together.
So do we have any movies coming up in the future? I'm sure this is going to lead to a lot of stuff, especially as the world unfolds.
I don't know how much we're allowed to say. We're very, very, very excited to be working on a project right now that we hope to have released this year. It's coming out. Well, we hope to have it completely, absolutely done this summer and maybe launch for a fall release. It's on a best-selling book called the the Extraterrestrial Species Almanac by Craig Campobasso. The book covers, I think, 82 or 86 extraterrestrial
82.
races, and this film won't cover as many, but we have some really hot topics in this film. We're going to cover a number of different races, and we're going to get into the agenda of the races and some of the more interesting aspects of them, and how we are very much connected with the cosmos, and how we're all sort of co-creating together. And I think this documentary will be, another nice little journey.
Yeah.
Well, people want to know, and disclosure is upon us.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank
And we
you.
are really, really excited to be here at Conscious Life Expo. It's really, really a highlight for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe next year we'll be here to premiere the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Thank
Yeah.
you guys so much.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.